All right, you're looking at live pictures from Duluth, Georgia. That's where former President Trump is speaking at a rally. And tonight, Trump's campaign manager is on defense after K-File uncovered several posts that Chris LaCivita, longtime Republican operative, now Trump campaign manager, reposted and liked from the hours after the January 6th insurrection. They lay the blame squarely at Trump's feet for January 6th, and one even suggests invoking the 25th Amendment to remove Trump from office. So, K-Files, Andrew Kaczynski joins me now. All right, Chris LaCivita, obviously, running the Trump campaign now. What did you find?
Well, look, and Aaron, what has Donald Trump been doing the last couple of weeks? He's been recasting January 6th. He called it a day of love. He spread a conspiracy theory that it was a government-staged inside job. Well, one person we found who seemingly disagreed with him was his own campaign manager. All right. And this guy liked and he shared posts condemning Trump on January 6th. And I want to walk people through some of them. You referenced that one in the intro, the 25th Amendment. Now, this was a tweet that he actually liked from a former Republican member of Congress, Barbara Comstock, saying that, quote, Twitter locked at real Donald Trump for 12 hours. Now the cabinet needs to lock him down for 14 days. Hashtag 25th Amendment now. The 25th Amendment basically says that the cabinet can basically keep the president, take the powers away from the president if he's essentially incapacitated. They were calling for him to do this after January 6th. So that's one thing his campaign manager liked. He also shared a lot of posts on his feed, some of which we found that he removed. One of them was a statement from former President George W. Bush that laid the blame at the feet of Donald Trump. Just a couple of quotes from there that said, "I am appalled by the reckless behavior of some political leaders since the election," and added that the rioting at the Capitol was, quote, undertaken by people whose passions had been inflamed by falsehoods and false hopes, again, seemingly pointing the finger at Trump. And then another post shared by LaCivita was this text message that said, quote, "This is a disgusting tragedy. Someone literally lost their life because of a lie that Trump told." And that, again, essentially points the finger at Donald Trump. And then one more post talked about the people rioting at the Capitol and said, quote, "These are not protesters. They are thugs."
All right, so you asked Chris LaCivita, about the posts. What's his response?
So we did reach out to the campaign. We said, how do you square these? As I mentioned, some of them had been removed. One of them was still on his feed. And in a statement to CNN, they said, retweets and likes, this is from LaCivita, retweets and likes are not endorsements. I'm focused on winning the election 2 weeks from now, not distractions from CNN.
Okay, all right. Well, stay with me. We're all familiar with the likes and retweets don't equal sign endorsements, except for in cases like this, when obviously.
But it wasn't on his feed.
Right, it's not like an intellectual. It was okay.
Yeah. Some people put that up top, you know.
So but even if you do, is what I'm saying. But he didn't even do it, so that's fair. Okay, Jamal. How significant is it that the person who is leading the Trump campaign, Chris LaCivita, was retweeting and liking these posts?
Look, as someone who has had his own bout with Twitter in the past, I think we have to be a little judicious when we think about long ago tweets. The problem here, though, is that it is part of a pattern among Republicans that's hard to ignore. We just finished this entire segment talking about John Kelly, who was the chief of staff. We've seen Mark Esper, who was the defense secretary. We've seen other national security officials, communications officials, who all felt so uncomfortable about what happened that day. And now we have the president's campaign manager, who, when the cameras weren't on him, said what he probably really believed. The question is, why would he trade that moral consistency for some sort of political power? I don't know if that's exactly what it is that happened, but I do think it is part of a whole that it's just becoming harder and harder to ignore.
So, Scott, I know you're close. You know Chris LaCivita well. You've spent a lot of time with him. You've spoken to him here in recent hours or day. How do you see it?
Well, first of all, I've known him for over 20 years. I think he's probably the best political operative in the Republican Party. And most Republicans I know in politics right now are saying, thank God for Chris LaCivita. He's done a hell of a job. He's put Donald Trump in a position to win. And if he does win, a big part of it will be because of the campaign that he and Susie and the rest of the team have built. Yep. That's number one. Number two, one of his favorite sayings is, when you're taking flack, you must be over the target. And I think that's how he feels right now. Look, and I'll just speak for myself. On this air, I wrote and said some of the same emotional reactions to January the 6th that Chris had. A lot of Republicans did. And I'll answer your question directly. The reason Republicans are going to end up voting Republican and for Trump and for the Republican ticket is because of what the Democratic Party has done for the last 4 years and what they would do under Kamala Harris. I'm certain Chris feels that way. I feel that way. And there's not a politician alive that I think any of us agree with 100% of the time. And I certainly don't like everything Donald Trump has said and done. But I have already voted, happily cast my vote for Trump, despite my misgivings and continued misgivings about what happened on January the 6th. And millions of Republicans are going to do the same.
Did you trade the Constitution for some policies that you
I'm
think
I'm not trading the Constitution.
Well, he said he'd go after
journalists.
Journalists
like
and have
Obama?
journalists put in jail.
Like
he said
Obama?
that he would
Like
go after
Obama?
the First Amendment of citizens and have the military use against them. That is not something that most people who
If you're worried
believe in
about
the
journalists
Constitution
being
would go
put in
along
jail,
with.
call Barack Obama. He set the precedent on that.
Andrew, LaCivita, though, doesn't want people to, I mean, I guess it's not surprising, but he deleted some of these posts, right? He just was hoping people would not see them.
Yeah.
So how did you find it? How did you find them, that they existed?
So we, you know those numbers, Aaron, at the end of a tweet where it's like 5, 7, 8, whatever, you know, those actually mean something. Those are a timestamp for when the tweet was sent. So we went to, yeah, I know, right? Surprising.
I'm like, what?
I
I'm going
know.
in. I can't.
So we went to the Internet Archive. We went to the Wayback Machine. We went and we looked at his tweets from that day, or we looked at, you know, what the timestamps were for the tweets that day. We popped in to see any of his that we could pull from that day, and we found these ones that we had shared that were no longer on his feed. And yeah, it's pretty easy, you know.
All right, so
This is what we do.
All right, and I guess the question is, you all are having an important conversation about whether a person can evolve on the issue of January 6th. Yeah. I think there's a lot of people watching who feel like you feel, Jamal, maybe some like you feel, Scott, but that's one thing. The other thing is how many people it's going to influence, okay, to know something like this. So you have James Carville come out tonight, Raihan, and he's obviously was heavily responsible for Biden coming off the ticket. He's been pessimistic about Democrats' chances at times, but now tonight he says Harris is going to win. He's certain of it. He cites her money advantage, Trump's election losses since 2016, and Carville writes, just a feeling. Just a feeling. What do you think?
Well, it's not clear to me that that feeling is going to guarantee Harris a victory, in part because we're talking a lot about things that Donald Trump said and did several years ago. There are a lot of folks in the wider public who remember things that Kamala Harris said and did several years ago, including during her 2020 presidential campaign, including statements about, for example, sex reassignment surgeries for migrant detainees, something that the K-file broke, among others. There are a lot of stories like this where you have to believe that she has a drastically different position today that is more in line with the wider American public. You have to believe that despite the fact that she's never explained why her views changed so markedly. She hasn't said, we went too far. She hasn't said, Democrats got this one wrong. She hasn't said, let me meet you in the middle and explain why I'm meeting you in the middle. It's all, my values haven't changed. My position is totally different. How dare you ask me why? And that just doesn't convince a lot of
I hear what
folks.
you're saying, but Ashley, okay, that's what Carville said. Money advantage, true. Trump's election office,
Huge.
losses since 2016, true. I'll add in a record-breaking early voting every single place you look. We don't know who that favors. Traditionally, Democrats could be different this time. We don't know, but nonetheless, you're seeing that.
Yes.
Polls in swing states which have consistently shown her up within the margin of error.
Yes.
So we call it a dead heat because it is. But I'm just saying, if all these things were flipped and it was Trump, people would be saying Trump was winning.
Yes. Okay. As someone who has often made presidential predictions off of feelings, in 2016, I believed Donald Trump was going to win off of a feeling. In 2020, before the Democratic nomination even was secured by Joe Biden, I knew he would win the presidency. Tonight, I will make a prediction based off of feelings that I think Kamala Harris will win, and I will tell you why. I think that there is a silent majority out there that don't want to talk about politics, that are sick of it, and might not like her policies, and might have questions about why she has changed. But what they aren't changing on is our Constitution. And so they believe when she says that I will have a Republican in my cabinet, or I have been vice president for 4 years and I have gone around and expanded my views on different things, that she will lead. And I think women in this election will be the determinant factor, because I think losing a constitutional right feels gutting to a lot of people. Even if you don't believe in abortion, to lose a right and know you can lose it and have less rights than your mother had in this time, I think that is why Kamala Harris will win.
And we hit